The Walker spy case was a Cold War espionage ring led by U.S. Navy warrant officer John Walker Jr. From 1968 to 1985, he sold crucial naval encryption secrets to the Soviet Union, severely compromising U.S. military communications. This operation represents one of the most damaging spy operations in American history. Here is that story.
I mean, I have to say that Kmart security is better than anything the Navy would have. I mean, Kmart protects their toothpaste better than the Navy protects their top secrets.
I would like to ask you to put aside the emotions that you feel about me, about the situation, about espionage in general.
John Walker was paid by the Soviets for handing over the most deeply held American secrets.
The damage was absolutely enormous, incalculable. It probably altered the strategic balance of power, perhaps permanently.
John Anthony Walker Jr. ran the largest and most damaging espionage ring in Cold War history. For nearly 18 years, he and his co-conspirators sold U.S. Navy secrets to the Soviets. Yet things inevitably got too big and too messy. John Walker's contempt for his wife and those around him meant that it was only a matter of time before his house of cards went tumbling down. In the year of the spy, John Anthony Walker Jr. was the spy of the decade.
Now, you're probably asking yourself, Mike, why are you showcasing this individual and highlighting this spy ring that took place beginning in 1967 all the way into 1985? Well, I'm going to tell you why. There's a method behind my madness. A few days ago, I did a show paying respects to two fallen soldiers, National Guard soldiers. Last week, they were shot. One has since passed away. Specialist Sarah Beckstrom passed away last week, and Officer Andrew Wolf remains in the hospital in critical condition. The assailant in this attack was a Afghan refugee citizen who, during the Afghanistan evacuation 4 or 5 years ago, he was a part of that. And according to information, he did some site work for U.S. intelligence. So based on that, he was given asylum to, let me bring up my camera here so you can see me. He was given asylum to come to the United States. And based on his service to our country and a quote-unquote vigorous vetting process. Subsequent to that, years later, he shot two of our American soldiers. So I did a show on this last week, and I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this heavily. And because I am an ex-service member myself, I've worn a uniform, and I've understood since 1987, when I joined, that I dedicated and swore to defend my country. I swore to defend my country, and the far end result of such would be to give your life for your country. That's my, and I believe every person in uniform, born and bred in America, will feel the same way. You join the service to serve your country, even if it comes down to giving your life for the country that you were born in. And I feel that way to this day. So of course I feel a special way about what happened last week. So I've been thinking about that, and I thought about going. I thought about um, when I joined in 1987. This case, believe it or not, um, I'm going to skip forward. Let me just show you these characters on this page before I jump forward. This is the guy that did the deed last week. I don't. His name was like 30 letters long, so I can't pronounce it. This is John Walker. This is John Walker Lynn, the American Taliban, who was apprehended during the Afghan War. He did time in about 20 years, almost 20 years in prison. He's out now. He's still practicing the faith devoutly. Over to my right here is John Walker, the ringleader of the Walker Whitworth spy case, and this is his co-conspirator Jerry Whitworth. They were both apprehended in 1985. They were both apprehended in 1985. I joined in 1987. We did the same job. We didn't, of course, when I say they were communication specialists, I was a communication specialist. Or you can use the term radioman. John Anthony Walker was a warrant officer, communication specialist, who had a troublesome childhood, and back in the '60s, you either joined the military or you went to jail. So he already came in with an unethical, immoral type of background, but he joined the military, and he was able to do what he did by doing that. Unfortunately, he was put in a position of public trust, which is what we do in communications. It's a position of public trust, and I'll talk to you about that in just a bit. But John Walker, retired chief warrant officer, he did die indeed in federal custody in 2014 at the age of 77. He was given a life sentence for his deeds. John Walker and his co-conspirator Jerry Whitworth. Jerry Whitworth was also a communications specialist. He was a chief, and this is him in uniform. He's currently serving a 365 years at FCI Victorville, which is right up the road here, just a few miles up the road here. He's currently 86 years old, but he's still alive, serving time. And so, going back to this particular case, it personally touched me because of what happened to the soldiers. But it got me to thinking and to actually just doing a lot of mentally massaging why someone in a position of public trust would do what they do. What would make John Walker Lynn become a member of the Taliban and go against the country that he was born in, and commit harm on behalf of a foreign country? I don't know. What would make this guy who did what he did, excuse me, what would make this guy who did what he did kill our soldiers? I don't know. What would make the Walker case defendants, John Walker and Jerry Whitworth, do what they did? Now, the Jerry Whitworth case, going back to 1985, I'm going to jump 2 years to 1987 when I joined the military. When I joined the military in 1987, this case was still sizzling hot. It was a sizzling hot case, and it was the first day of me walking into school, communication school, same school these guys went to. The very first day of walking through this school, learning about what these guys did was curriculum 101. I knew about these guys in 1987, first day through the door, because of the damage they did to U.S. intelligence in the U.S. government during that time. As a matter of fact, the damage that they did that spanned from, and I have a brief timeline here, but this espionage ring started was about 17, 18 years in length. Started in 1967, of course, up until the arrest in 1985. These guys had access to communications, top secret information. And I'm going to give you the stripped down version of how it used to be and up until how it was when I joined 2 years later, because this is when policies change, rules change for the federal government. In the prior to this incident with these two individuals, having access to okay, so I'm going to see if I can break this down into very simplistic terms. In communications, if you think about communications in 2025, everything is internet. I'm on the internet, da da da. I'm on my cell phone. I'm on my cell phone, da da da. Okay, that's how we understand communication now. Internet signals go out on the internet. On the internet, cell phone hooks up to the satellite, and you're on your cell phone or a tower. So back before cell phones and the internet and all that, we use what we call high frequency HF, UHF, VLF, which are very high frequency, low frequency HF signals to send out ultra high signals to send signals from one point to another. If you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean, that ship has an antenna on it and is sending a signal to a shore station or other ships in the area. Simple. You're sending radio wave signals from point A to point B. Radio wave signals, as we know, if you turn on any police scanner or you turn on any you turn on your radio, your local radio channel, you're going to hear traffic. You're going to hear, I say traffic because we use that word. You're going to hear information that's going out to you. You turn on the radio, a radio channel broadcast information to you, so that when we turn on our radio, we can hear. Well, what these guys did was in for the military, so that the U.S. can send a signal to another ship or somewhere on land, so that other countries like Russia, Vietnam, any of these other countries that we were not friendly with, so that they can't monitor what we're doing or what we're talking about, we use what we call encryption. We use information that we put in between. We put a barrier in between that signal that scrambles it so that they can't understand what you're saying. It's called encryption. So foreign countries can't hear what you're saying. Only the friendly countries that you have or other U.S. Vessels can understand what you're saying, because on their end they have the same mechanism that takes that signal and decrypts it, deciphers it, so that they can hear it. That's how it works. So you have your signal that's going out. There's a barrier that blocks that, so it's scrambled. But the other end has something else on their end that takes that scrambled signal, descrambles it, so they can understand what you're saying. That's how it works. And what these guys were doing, they were selling the information and providing information to the Russians, the Soviet Union during that time. This was, I believe, before the downfall of the Soviet Union, giving the information to decipher um, our communications so that they could hear everything that we were saying. Now, let's talk about the fallout from that. Even though I was very young, 17, 18, when I was learning this stuff, um, I had an understanding of it, but I have an even more clear understanding of it now in my older age. And um, what I heard back then in 1987 was the damage that this spy ring caused may very well have been the reason why we lost the Vietnam War. I heard that in the 80s, that the damage that they did to our US government was so severe it may have been because of what these guys did was so severe, which is why the Vietnamese who were in alliance with the communist regime, Viet Cong, communism, Viet Cong, Russia, communists, were in alliance, and the Russians were feeding information to the Viet Cong of our every movement. Remember, this spy ring lasted from 1967 to the 80s. So you had the end of the 60s, you had the 70s, you had the 80s. We pulled out of Vietnam in the early 70s. So um, it's very conceivable and likely. And again, this is what was actually relayed to us. A shiny forehead there. During this time, so the damage they did was so large that thousands of lives were lost. And I believe even during that time, and via documentaries that uh, have been published and created during this time, the U.S. really did not understand how it was possible for the Viet Cong to know our every move. We were surprised. The government was surprised how the Viet Cong were able to seem to know our every move. Well, that explains it, or that's a possible explanation. They had the information, they had intel. They were able to listen and know every move because of the deeds of um, John Walker and Jerry Whitworth. Subsequent to the arrest, during the beginning years of the spy ring, John Walker recruited his son Michael, who was also in the U.S. Navy, and he recruited his father. His father was also arrested. Michael is currently still incarcerated, and as well as, like I mentioned earlier, Jerry Whitworth is still incarcerated. So the spy ring went down. Those guys will never get out of prison. Of course, the dad died. I think Michael Whitworth and Jerry Whitworth are still the ones that are confined. Here's the interesting thing about this. This is very interesting. Okay, Jerry Whitworth, the spy ring wasn't brought down by some random person. No, excuse me. It was not brought down by some random person. They were just, happened to be in a bar and they overheard a conversation. No, it was not. The spy ring was brought down by Jerry Whitworth's wife. Of course, yeah, we know the story. You're in a marriage. The marriage is not working out. Um, you've pissed off your wife. You've pissed off your wife. You're not giving her what she wants, which is probably money. And she's like, okay, well, if you're going to go that way, I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to bring down the whole operation. That's exactly what she did. She snitched him out, and the ex-wife, brought down the whole operation. Now, I don't know, if she had a change of, I don't know the details of that, but I know that she was instrumental in doing that. The family was actually, so there was the timeline of such things where, these operations, that Jerry Whitworth was involved in, strangely enough, and this is what really puzzles me, he was not approached as a sailor wearing a uniform with his sparks on his arm, which is the symbol of a radio, or with the symbol of a communication specialist walking around, and somebody say, "Hey, psst, psst, hey, I see that you work in communications. Do you want to make some extra money? I want to talk to you about maybe providing us with information." No, he was not approached this way. Jerry Whitworth actually walked into the U.S. Embassy, I believe, in Washington, D.C. He walked into I'm sorry, no, let me rephrase this. Jerry Whitworth in Washington, D.C. walked into the Russian Soviet embassy himself. He walked through the gates and says, "I will work for you. I can provide you with this." He voluntarily did it. They did not approach him. He approached. They did not approach him. He approached them, which is just shady. I mean, it's unbelievably um, something that just really doesn't even comprehend in my mind. While you would voluntarily betray your country, voluntarily betray your country. He didn't have a gun to his head. He was driven by, I don't know, greed. Greed. Well, I don't think it was greed. You want to know why it wasn't greed? Because out of the 17, 18 years of espionage for the Russians, it was under $1 million. That was it. It wasn't even $1 million. The profit from such an operation was not even seven figures. So how can you even think that it was driven by money? He did it for some other reason. I don't know. And again, maybe it was money, but was it worth it? No, it wasn't worth it. And so, very, and again, we're still. My understanding is we are still suffering from the repercussions of his actions, even in 2025, in some way or another. But I can tell you, but I do want to say that some of the changes that took place, some of the changes that I experienced firsthand myself, based on being in school and them drilling the importance of we call it ComSec, communications security. The interesting thing about it is nowadays we have these trainings, we have this, we receive these courses on cybersecurity. So security is still an issue, has always been an issue with communications. Now, again, we're dealing with the internet and things like that. But cybersecurity is how we phrase it now. But back in those days, it was called communication security, or ComSec for short. And so it was a big thing even back in the 80s. And one of the rules that was implemented during those days was, well, prior to John Walker, you could have information in a safe, and one person could walk in with the combination, open up the safe, take out the material, and walk away with it, or take pictures, or do whatever you want to do. Now, because of that, one of the procedures that was put into place that was deeply embedded in our work ethic during my time was the concept of what we call TPI, two-person integrity. Two-person integrity was the kind of like the foundation of everything that we did within the communications facility. Two people to do everything. So if there was a material, if there was a encryption material in a safe, it had two locks. You had a combination to one, the other person had the combination to the other, and you did not have the other combination. So not one person could access that that's safe. 2 people had to do it. 2 people had to sign the book, so signatures could be accounted for, and 1 person will watch the other person. That was not before the John Walker situation, and that was, one of the big issues with that. He had access to all this. That was a big change. So, with that being said, I want to again, I want to apologize for the technical issues with that noise. It bothers me. I want to clean that up. And it's me with my research and development. I'm always trying new tricks, new things, incorporating AI and things like that because I love technology and I hope to make this a viable living one day so that I could do this full time. I love doing it, and which is why I'm doing it so late tonight because this is something that was actually on my mind, and I wanted to get this content out. I wanted to get this podcast out and not delay any more days. So I've got to get to bed because I've got work first thing tomorrow morning. Uh, at some point, I'm going to say, "Hey, buy me a coffee," and hit that link if you want to buy me a coffee if you like my content at some point. Um, because I do want to expand on creating more content that's going to be helpful, entertaining, and at some point, um, you walk away with some bit of knowledge and understanding of how things in life work. I want to be that help be a part of that content creation team. With that being said, we're about 30 minutes in. I'm going to try to clean that first end up on the editing end. But with that being said, this is Mike B. Swancentric Talks Live with Mike B. Um, and at some point, I don't ever want to not mention Swanee T, who's doing her thing on the art end of the house. She's publishing these beautiful plated dishes that she's making at home for herself and her family. They're beautiful. They're on Back to Swan, TikTok, um, uh, IG. She's also on X with her photography. So Swancentric Media is alive and well. I'm doing these lives. I'm just a raw and real type of person. Swanee's doing more polished material, but we're still Swancentric Media as a whole. So check her out. Maybe I'll start dropping some links and things like that. If I was doing this stuff full time, you would have more polished content. But I'm just trying to get it in, trying to get it in where I fit in. So, I do have the engineering knowledge and skills to make it work. I just have to take time to do it, and I have to rush so much with the technology. With that being said, have a good night, have a good morning wherever you may be in the world, and I look forward to presenting.